Hello, everybody. Welcome to AC Day 1, Hobbiesville, Entrepreneurship, and Pokémon. And I do want to welcome everybody to Algonquin College. If you're here for the first time, it's always great to have everyone. Hey, hi, Katie. So my name is Matthew, and I'll be hosting this session today, spending some time with you guys over the lunch hour. And before we start, though, there's always some housekeeping stuff I want to go over. So let me just get through that a little bit before we get on to some exciting content for you all. So please feel free to share and use the chat tab to engage your community and college, all your friends and peers and everybody out here throughout the event today. The event is also equipped with closed captioning for all of us or those of us who need it. So please to enable that, you're going to go and select the CC icon along the bottom of the Zoom toolbar, and you're going to hold your questions, if at all possible, until the Q&A portion of the event. So I know everyone's going to have some questions for our guest, but please hold them until the end. To ask a question, there are two ways to do that. You can write in the Q&A. There's a chat separate from the chat. There's a Q&A feature. You can find that if you're on your phone or if you're on a computer device, or you could raise your virtual hand and we can have the question that way. So the event is being recorded, just so you guys know. And one thing to note is that it will be available to watch on AC Orientation on that webpage in a couple of days. And I think there's a link in the chat for you guys to follow or share with your friends in case they missed out on the session. You can let them know where to find it. One other thing, if you're planning on being on campus this fall, we would welcome you there, but please make sure to give yourself enough time to go through COVID-19 screening process. And please check out the Algonquin College vaccination policy. It's very, very important. We want to make sure that you guys can get into the college, but that we have to follow the provincial guidelines. So we're going to share some links for you for that as well. Okay, everybody, that's the end of housekeeping. We're done tidying up. Let's get into it. So I have the pleasure of introducing you to Logan Fournier. He's the owner and operator of Hobbiesville. He grew up in Ottawa, where he attended the University of Ottawa. And after university, he worked for Shopify. I'm sure we all know that one, where he learned about e-commerce and how to start a business. Awesome. Last year, Logan stumbled upon his old Pokémon cards. I think some of us are familiar with that story for ourselves, and decided to use it to start his own business, Hobbiesville. It is now on its way to becoming one of the top hobby stores in the country. And so, Logan, thanks for being here today. And if you want to come up on the screen, we can jump right into it.
Yeah, how's it going?
Good, awesome. So I hear you're just moving. So looks like you got some sweet inventory back there for the store and in behind you.
Yeah, we just moved from Kemptville just to Ottawa, so cool. Closer to everyone here, I would imagine. But yeah, we're just on Somerset Street now. We needed to expand our location, so yeah, we're growing pretty quick, and we have some cool plans coming up for the future.
Awesome, that's really, really great. So we are going to go through, and I'm going to ask you a couple questions. I'm just finding them here. Here they are. I have on the theme of entrepreneurship, because that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about how to be entrepreneurs, and you yourself are a successful one at this point. So congratulations on that. Do you think you always had that sort of spirit to be entrepreneurial, or did you find it along the way through Shopify, Ottawa U? How did that go? How did that happen?
I always, like when I was younger, I wanted to find something, like business related that I could kind of start to work on, but I could never really land like a cool idea. My wife actually owns a big jewelry company, and she was kind of an inspiration for me to try to find something to get started. But yeah, this really just kind of fell out of nowhere. It really kind of what you spoke about earlier, just me finding some of my old collections and then getting started from there. And then obviously using the skills that I had from Shopify. I worked there for a really long time, since pretty early days, and it taught me a lot about business. So yeah, kind of just mixed the two things together, a passion of mine as well as the business stuff that I had learned, and then started Hobbiesville.
That's amazing. I'm glad to see that you have an inspiration there. I think that's something that we all in starting businesses, we all have somebody that we're like, wow, that person is doing it. I want to do it too. That looks so exciting. That looks fun, right? So I'm glad to see that you found that in your wife. That's very cool. And then you did mention sort of briefly what you had been working on at Shopify and how that sort of helped you in your business. Was it mostly the technical side of the skills, or was there a mindset piece to that as well?
I mean, Shopify instills like a very business oriented mindset in anyone who works there. I'm sure some people that are probably in this will work there one day since they hire a ton of people, but they really do push that. And I mean, there's things that they kind of offer you in the back end once you work there that really do help you kind of get started. Like, you know, they give you free plans that you can play around with, things like that. So there is a technical element to it, because otherwise, like, you're probably not going to spend the $29 a month just to like play around. They actually give you like a free plan, and different like tools and assets to get started, like pictures and stuff like that. I worked in a couple different departments at Shopify. So I worked initially in customer support, which is kind of where everyone starts. And then I moved into Plus, which is like their higher end. And that's where I started learning a lot about like businesses, saw what they were doing. And then that's what really like helped me fine tune my skills to get started here. So yeah, like I think it's both really. Shopify does have like a really good business oriented mentality at the office, which that doesn't exist anymore, which really helped me kind of like learn how to start things. On that note, I like put a lot of money when I got started into marketing and things like that. And that's something that Shopify always talked about, is just marketing yourself and like setting yourself apart. So that's kind of what I did. And then, yeah, that's what kind of led me here at this point.
Yeah, I think the idea that everybody, people have had ideas before, and they're always going to have, we're going to stumble upon the same ideas as humans. I think there is a really big differentiator in the marketing piece. If you can be louder and actually have a better product or a good product, then you might find yourself successful. So,
yeah, and I think they teach you to like, business is kind of about failing in a way. Like you're not going to land your first like six. I mean, I got lucky, I think, that like my first real business took off, but like obviously with COVID and all these things, everyone kind of being nostalgic in a sense really helped me. But I think for a lot of the time, like people will start 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 businesses that'll all fail, but then they'll land the one that kind of works. So they really like put that kind of in your mind that like failing's okay, which was nice, because I'm not like one to really like to like mess up things and fail. I'm kind of like try to be a perfectionist in many ways. So like learning that really did help me to get better in my career. So
amazing. So that's a mindset piece. I think that really would be some of the mindset. We definitely do that where I work in the area office, the research office. It's about trying things and finding and seeing what works, especially at the Makerspace. We'll let students do that. So one thing I wanted to note, you said, they gave you some tools and some access. So for the students that are AC students at the college, I just wanted to give you an idea that you actually can, through the area entrepreneurship office, get licenses for that. So if you're an Algonquin College student and you don't have the $29 a month, you can build a store, and for a year you can get a license, and that's from Shopify. So we're excited to sort of have that opportunity for students. But let's talk about Hobbiesville a little bit more, a little bit how it started, because you said, or I mentioned, that it sort of happened when you found your cards in the basement of your parents, and that led you. But how did that story roll out? Like what happened there? What actually happened there?
Yeah, so well, my wife was actually pregnant, and I was kind of bored because there wasn't as much as I thought to do in those moments. Going good, I was like, wow, I'm gonna be so busy, but I wasn't. And she was sleeping a lot, so we had moved back to like my hometown in Winchester, which isn't too far from here. So yeah, and I was actually trying to start a YouTube channel. This is kind of embarrassing, but called Mr. Fix It, because I do know like some tech stuff. So I was like fixing old Game Boys, fixing Nintendos, doing all that stuff. So I actually went to the house to like find some of my old Game Boys. But then I stumbled across all these cards, and I was like, oh wow, these are perfect. Like the condition's so good. And I still didn't really know a lot about like grading and stuff at that point. So I grabbed the cards, and then I started going through them and looking up the prices on eBay to kind of get an idea of like what they were going for. And then, yeah, honestly, like I had a Charizard, like a base set Charizard that was shadowless. I had like all these, I had like, not to go through all of them, but like Shining Mewtwo and Shining Gyarados and like all these really cool cards. And yeah, I just ended up selling them, and I ended up making like a really large profit. And I was like, wow, I actually thoroughly enjoy doing this. This is kind of fun. And I had some experience selling clothes in the past. I used to like buy and sell clothes here and there. So yeah, so then I kind of got started with that, put them up on eBay, and then yeah, like I said, sold all of them. And then I had started building a relationship with a wholesaler out of Toronto that was one of the Canadian wholesalers for Pokemon. And we just started talking, and I was like, maybe this is what I want to do. And he was like, I can fully support you through that. So yeah, that's what it started. I initially started as Red Trainer, which is a Pokemon thing. And yeah, so I started selling the Pokemon cards, and we kept doubling our sales like almost every week. And then at that point, I was like, okay, I think this is like actually something that could be huge. And then yeah, just took it from there. It took me a while to like get the guts to quit my job. I was still working at Shopify for a large portion of it. I was actually running the store, doing all the shipments by myself and working at Shopify. And then eventually I was like, you know what, I'm actually hurting the business more than anything. So I ended up hiring a friend of mine who still works with me today. And then, yeah, quit my job. And then now I'm here.
Awesome. That's really, really cool. And I think there's some interesting ideas in there, in the fact that, you know, you said you couldn't land that idea at the beginning, right? You're like, oh, I just can't think of like the brand new idea. And I think a lot of times that's like a gap for people is, well, if I've thought of something, but you know, there's 3 other people doing it, so I'm not going to jump on that bandwagon, or I'm not going to do it. But then you can find yourself in situations where you're kind of like led into this idea. And not that it's brand new or anything, but you know, there's opportunity. If other people are doing it and they're making money, that means there's probably opportunity for you to do it as well. And so we talk about how sometimes when it's already being done, you can find your value proposition or a way that you're doing just a little bit differently, but that there's actually proven that there's a need and there's a customer base for your idea. Whereas if you start with a fresh, totally new idea, you have no idea whether people actually want it yet or not. So
yeah, and I agree with you 100%. Like, you know, other people were in the space that I was in when I got started, but I was like, okay, you know, how can I be completely different from these other stores?
Yeah.
And I worked for a clothing store, and clothing stores tend to be super clean and super bright. So I was like, okay, that's something that I want to do, is have a very bright hobby store. If anyone here has been to a hobby store before, like usually it's like a basement and usually kind of smells weird, you know? So like we wanted to make it super bright, super like inviting. And then we wanted to build like a really strong expansion plan. Like, how can we make this more than just like a Canadian hobby store? Like, how can we make it like a worldwide thing?
Cool.
Especially too, because in Canada, we actually kind of get limited on what we get. So like, obviously we have a lot of Pokemon stuff behind us, but that's because we've built really good rapport with our wholesalers, and we do buy things at a higher cost sometimes just to keep them on the shelves, etc. But like with our expansion plan, we plan on expanding to the US. That'll bring in more sports, things like that, that like usually Canadian stores don't get a lot of. So
yeah, interesting. Cool. I'm glad to see. I'm glad to see that you have some, you know, always be building, right? Like, don't rest on this is working, but what's the next step? I love that. That's a cool idea as well. So talking about a little bit about Pokemon, we talked a little bit about that, but it is their 25th anniversary, if I'm not mistaken. Are there any cards or tips you can give to both novice and expert collectors?
So like tips, do you mean tips around the 25th anniversary, or do you mean just in general?
So I just think we're talking Pokemon, and like, if you're building a collection right now, I think is what this is asking. If I'm brand new to it, let's take it that way. If I'm brand new to it, where should I start? What should I do? Do I buy an expansion pack? Like, how do I get, you know, my feet wet in this sort of scenario? How do I get started?
Yeah, so I'd say like, if you're looking to go back, you know, to early days Pokemon where you're seeing the most value, like sealed product is probably out of the question. I think some of those boxes are going for like 250,000 now, so probably not worth it. But with that being said, like there's a lot of really good products that came out after the main line of Pokemon, which was like base set and jungle. Jungle actually is very cheap, and buying like singles cards from that, like we've seen them consistently go up in value. So there's definitely a good investment piece if that's what you're looking for there. And then from a collector standpoint, like you can always find deals for cards. They might not be the best condition, but if you're looking to just build out a crazy collection, definitely what I would recommend is just look for people on eBay that are selling cards that are like, you know, near mint or a little bit less. And then as far as the 25th anniversary goes, like from what I've heard, just working in the industry, like it's a limited set. It's supposed to be a limited run. And if you're looking to jump back into, you know, like that nostalgia piece for Pokemon, like they're reprinting like Charizard and Blastoise and Venusaur and all these cards. So it's a good way to step back into it. And there was a set that came out like 5 years ago called XY Evolutions, And that's actually the set that got me back into it. And I think it'll be kind of similar with the new one coming out, which is Pokemon Celebrations, which is the name of the 25th anniversary set.
Awesome. So I'm hearing that these vintage cards are worth like a lot of money, especially if you're buying a sealed box, like $250,000. That's insanity.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's really crazy. But if someone like your story finds their cards right now, they're walking in their parents' basement, they're inspired to go looking because they hear this right now. What do they do? Like, do they go get them appraised right away? Like, how do they make sure that they're going to find what their cards are worth and go about either selling them or keeping them and having them graded and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, so once COVID is kind of cleared up, we're going to offer a grading system. So that's an option. I mean, grading, obviously not necessarily just through us, but through anywhere, that's like a recommendation of mine, just because it increases the value of the cards, but it adds like legitimacy to them, because there's still a lot of people who doubt cards on eBay and things like that. So like you're adding that extra layer where it's like, okay, I've got this graded, but I've also got it authenticated. So I think that's a good thing to do. I mean, a lot of hobby stores you can walk into and they will give you like pricing for it, which just keep in mind, obviously, that there's like a 20% margin in that. So if you do some research on your own, like on eBay or, TCG Player, things like that, then you can get a better pulse on like what they're actually selling for and then kind of make a decision from there. One cool thing that we actually have in the works with Shopify, because we're partnering with them, is a marketplace, so that if you ever find your cards, you don't really need to sell them to us. Like you can just sell them yourselves, but you can use like Hobbiesville traffic to like actually like promote your cards and then have people buy them from there. And then you take the profit from it. So that's an option, but I would say like first step, definitely getting your cards graded is probably my recommendation. I think that was like my biggest mistake when I did sell my cards. Because when I sold them to people on eBay, this was actually kind of rude on their part, but I sold them to people on eBay and then they were telling me what they were grading as. And then I was looking up the prices and being like, oh no, I messed up. Like my Shadowless Charizard, I think graded like a 9.5 or something like that. And I sold it for like maybe, I don't know, 10,000, something like that. It doesn't matter. But that person times their money by like 5 times. And I think they didn't sell it, but they were going to hold on to it for a long time. So it was cool. I mean, it's cool in that sense, but from just like a collector standpoint, I think that part's the most fun. I don't know if selling it is really something like that. It's like more stressful. I think like actually adding cards to your collection and then having them for the future is probably what I would recommend, especially right now, just with the hype around it. So yeah.
Cool. So I really like seeing local businesses, like blow up. This is pretty amazing that you've, reached national distribution. This is fantastic, right? And you kind of mentioned that you have some plans for further expansion in the US and things like that. What are you working on for that? How are you going about that? What does that look like right now?
Yeah, so right now we just filled out so the US is a bit of a different market than Canada. Canada, for anyone here, obviously that's listening, like starting a business in Canada actually is very easy. Like you don't need to jump as many hurdles. We have been working on an LA store for probably 5 months at this point. You have to get like a reseller's permit, a seller's permit. You have to get your articles of incorporation in the state that you're going to operate. So that's something that we've been working on. We've partnered with Shopify for a few cool things that are going to be coming up in the future, just around like similar to like an eBay style. And then as far as like the store and locally goes, we're going to start operating with like tournaments and throwing different events. Like we want to make Hobbiesville a little bit more fun than the traditional hobby store, where you can come in, play. We're going to put in like a little arcade section for people to come in, obviously COVID permitting. But yeah, like that's kind of what we're working on right now. Really for us, Hobbiesville is more than just like us like selling stuff. We want to actually like build a community around it, especially in Ottawa, because I've liked the comic book stores and stuff here, but I think that they've always kind of lacked on like the community focus part. So that's what we're going to work on to kind of separate ourselves from them. And then, yeah, we also have expansion plans for Montreal and Vancouver, which would be pretty cool for us just because we have a business partner that's in Vancouver and we pay a lot in shipping. So it'd be nice to be out there. And I'd also love to go like to Vancouver. I've never been there before. So those are some of the plans we have in the works. And then we're constantly adding like new product lines. We've just stepped into like toys. So if anyone really likes toys, like we've got into like NECA and all those kind of bigger toys. So yeah, so that's pretty cool. And I love those kinds of things. I'm like a toy guy. So it's cool to see that stuff come in for sure. And like, I love the Pokemon, don't get me wrong, but it's nice to get a bit of a break from all the Pokemon is, because it's super busy and, you know, comes with a lot of issues, just because, you know, they're trying to produce things really fast and things are delayed and all that stuff. So yeah, it's nice to get a little bit of a break. And I'm excited for the store to get open. I think that's the biggest thing we're working on, because it feels like miles away from being open, and we're supposed to be open in 3 days. So yeah, but
opening in 3 days. Oh my goodness. Well, I really do hope that goes well, and let everybody know. Maybe they can send a message in the chat where they can go, where the store is located. You said Somerset. Is that where you are right now, or?
Yeah, it'll be it's on Somerset and Percy. So it's like kind of like Chinatown area. But I can definitely post the address for sure.
Awesome. Always good. And I love the idea of building community out of it, because you know, you're right. Like, I've worked at Microplay Video Games. It was like a retro video game store in the past when I was a little younger, and that was some of the best times for me. Like, I just enjoyed, and the comic book store is right down the street, so we'd always hang out, and we'd, you know, have good moments, have tournaments, things like that. And honestly, I still have friendships from that to this day, and still talk to them when I find a cool video game or something I want to buy, and I need to know, hey, is this good or not? So I definitely think that you're on the right track there. In, you know, building a community is exciting. And in Ottawa, I think that's sort of, I'm glad you're here picking up the ball, because that Microplay that I had is closed now, and there's a bunch of stores that, you know, are at risk. So I'm glad that you're trying to modernize that idea and bring it back, I think, for everyone, because it has been doing things. So really kudos to you, and I'm glad to hear it personally. So I think at that point.
Sure. And one thing I think you just
go ahead.
Other thing I'd comment on is, like, for anyone looking to start a business, like, definitely focus on like e-commerce, because that's where we obviously flourish, and like that's where I think you'll see the most growth. I think if you work in that direction, where you go e-com to like an actual brick and mortar, works a lot better than if you go brick and mortar to e-com, because brick and mortar is like a whole separate thing. So yeah, anyways, just want to make that quick note, because I think that's probably the easiest way to get started.
Yeah, that's a great note for everybody. Yeah, I think it used to be the other way around, but I think we definitely have to switch that, flip that. I think it's flipped already, but just make sure everybody follows trend, right? Is there, so promotions or product launches, is there anything really important that you want to know other than the opening of the new store that we just talked about? Any other products that you're...
As far as products go, I mean, if anyone's, you know, jumping into the Pokemon scene, next month is the release of the 25th anniversary set. So that'd be something that we have in store. And we're going to allocate a decent amount to the store and not online, just to give people a better opportunity to get it. I think the biggest issue right now with Pokemon is it's almost unattainable. And by the time you get it in your hands, you end up paying more for it. We are in a similar boat. Like, as soon as we sell out of our wave, like whatever that wave is that we get, we go back to the wholesaler and ask for more. And they're like, well, it's $30 more now per product. And you're like, okay. So definitely try to jump on that early. I'm trying to think of anything else. There's nothing too crazy towards the end of the year. Like, board games are going to really kind of grow towards the Christmas time. Like, Wingspan just got marked as like one of the best games of all time for board games. It's like, it beats every single board game that's ever been released or something like that. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, that's the main big release that's coming up. And then there's another Pokemon set and a couple Yu-Gi-Oh sets coming out for the holidays as well.
Awesome.
There's a new Magic set too, actually, that's coming out, I think, next week. That's supposed to be really good. So
amazing. I think I don't know, I'm kind of jealous right now. I think you're having a lot of fun with all of these cards and toys and board games, like right up. You know, for my own curiosity, is there retro video games coming up down the pipe, or are you leaving that to others?
So because we kind of have seen, like, not to downplay them at all, but we have seen kind of the downfall of like microplays and EB Games. Obviously GameStop is doing well, but we do want to kind of hit that market and start to do like retro video games. I also am super passionate about it. So like, you know, NES, SNES, things like that. So that is something that's on our radar. We've thought about launching it as like a trade-in kind of platform. So, you know, a customer can come in and trade like their N64 games for products that they want in store and then build up our inventory that way.
Cool.
But we'll see. There's also thrifting and stuff, but I don't really like doing the thrift shop thing because you're taking it away from someone who's going to play it, and that's not really how we want to operate. So
yeah.
So we'd probably tackle it the same way as like, EB Games did. We actually do have a video game account. So we will bring in games, like we brought in Avengers for PS5 and I think Xbox. And then we had like Tony Hawk and a couple just random ones. So there's that option too, that we can expand on that market. It's a lot to take on because Best Buy and all those places are pretty big for the video game industry at this point.
Yeah, I feel that. So that was my own question that I wanted to ask of you. And before we jump into everyone else's questions in the chat, we've heard some wisdom along the way, some ideas for young entrepreneurs. But is there anything that you'd want to share that you wish you kind of knew when you started the business and when you were just launching? Is there something you were like, oh, if someone had told me this, it would have made a little bit of a difference for me? Is there anything like that you could share?
Yeah, I think this one's tough because I think in a way with any business that you start, you kind of have to support yourself. Like you're always going to get support of people around you for sure, but you really have to support like your own vision. I think that was my biggest roadblock. Like everyone kind of was like said I wasn't going to be able to do anything with it and thought it was kind of silly. And like, it's tough because that you're really passionate about it and like it's hard to express that to other people. But yeah, just kind of power through that and then kind of prove them wrong with whatever you achieve from the business. And then similar to what I said before is most businesses fail and you just kind of use what you learned from the first one to make the second one better. I just think that's super important just because I think failure is actually pretty normal. And I think I struggled with that for a long time, but yeah, it's pretty normal, especially in this industry. And Hobbiesville has done great to get started, but we've had many failures. We're going through one right now. Whereas like we're moving, but we also are fulfilling like 200 orders a day and we can't keep up with the volume. It's almost impossible. So we're going through pretty much a failure at this point. Like I'm sure we'll get some bad reviews and it's just completely normal to have these kind of missteps and definitely make you better. And yeah, I think the other thing too is kind of invest in your business. A lot of people try to do it and they try to do it kind of, half-fast. And yeah, I think if you kind of dedicate yourself to it, it's a better experience for you and for the business. I like in the beginning, I didn't put all of myself into it. And then when I started actually like dedicating my time to it, it definitely increased a lot at that point. And I noticed a big difference. And then marketing, super important.
So yeah, you really did notice that difference when you went all in, so to speak. Like you put yourself out there. I think there's not in a good way. There's probably added pressure when you have Shopify behind you and you're working and going to work every day and you get a steady paycheck. Yeah, maybe there's a little less incentive, I guess, to like stay up till 1 a.m. getting it done, and maybe then you don't even have to when you jump. So one thing I would add to, it's a little bit of a generalization, but I think the time to do those types of things, like I'm a little bit older now, I'm in my 30s and I have children and I have, a house and a mortgage to pay and all these things. And I'm privileged to have those things. And that's not the point. But I think when I was younger, I did start my own businesses and those were times when I could really take those shots and see whether or not that was going to, blow up for me or not, and put all of myself into it and not have those distractions. So I think, if you're here and you're studying at school, of course you have some things to think about, but when you can put yourself all in, we do have an option if you're in a co-op program to actually do an e-co-op. So that means that instead of going and working for someone else, you actually start a business over 4 months. And that's exactly what it's designed for, to mean that you don't have to go to another job or do anything else. You can just launch and work 8 hours a day on your business if you're a student at the college and you're wanting to do that. So you can find out more about that if you want to know, but I think we're on to question time. So thank you very much for Logan for all of that insight, and I hope now we can maybe answer some questions from students. I think there are a couple here in the chat and they're being prompted, so I'm just going to check out and see if there's any there, and give me a second while I might read them. So Braden has a question. He says, how did you find a buyer for all of your cards? What was the way that you went about that?
So I used eBay, which is probably not the best way to go about it if you have like a local community of people that collect. I realized kind of after that, like Facebook groups, things like that are a little bit better. But yeah, I definitely went through the eBay route. And then essentially like I sold 1 or 2 cards to the same person, and then we started building kind of a relationship around that. And he was actually getting the cards graded. He's the one that mentioned to me what the grades were.
Mm,
I do think eBay can be like a really good resource for pricing and things like that. And if you can find a good buyer, you know, with good reviews, definitely utilize them, because they will, like, they're actively seeking the products in most cases. Just be weary of like people with no reviews, because I will say that, like, from a seller perspective, eBay is pretty rough. Like, you don't really have any like pull with anything. They really like favor the buyer in a lot of situations. So just protect yourself there. But that's where I found most of my buyers.
okay, cool. We have a question from Matthew. Question for Logan. Answer whenever. So here's the time. Are you buying for prices listed online? Like Troll and Toad. He's being specific. I have a few ungraded money cards that I want to sell. Do I take my chances and get my cards graded? Or do you think I should blindly sell for what I see online as PSA graded 3s to 6s? It's a pretty specific question. So
Yeah.
hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, so in this case, like, it's kind of up to your judgment. This is actually kind of a hard question, because it is definitely kind of up to you. But I mean, if you're in the local area and you ever want to bring your cards in and have them looked at by our team, we can definitely give you a better look on like what the grading would be, or what we would assume it would be.
Yeah.
A PSA 3 is actually really low. And I would imagine, like, unless your card's like heavily bent or damaged or whatever, like, you're probably not going to get a 3. You know, I would always maybe just decide to throw it up on like as a bidding system through eBay, and just kind of let them know what the condition is and see what happens, to take it from there. But yeah, like, anytime anyone wants to ever get anything looked at or appraised, we can always give you, I don't know if I'm cutting out a bit, but get from there.
Okay.
But a PSA grade 3 is pretty low, so I'd imagine it's quite a bit higher.
Awesome. The questions are
I think I
rolling
was probably
in.
a bit different.
So I think that's a fair answer. You know, I can't exactly tell you what to do, but I think a good start might be in a couple of days when the store opens, you know, drop on by and see if they can help you out. I think that's a great answer for sure. So this one's from Wilson, and I'm just rolling down the questions here. What do you think makes the industry of cards, games, etc., such a booming business right now? Do you think it would be the same if COVID never happened? Interesting.
Yeah, that's a good question. So, do I think it would be the same with it? I think so. I think COVID actually like expressed it a bit and
Hmm.
sped things along. I think that it probably still would have been a booming industry. It would have just taken a bit longer. What it really comes down to for the industry is supply and demand. There's way more demand right now than anyone can produce. And when you go back and look at older products, they just weren't made in abundance and they weren't kept in good conditions. So you're definitely feeling that, where there's just not enough product to like satisfy everybody. And then things are just limited. It happens in kind of every industry. It hits a tipping point. Like, we've seen it in cars with like Porsches and things like that. Like, there's just a limit to how many there are. So then the
Yeah.
industry tends to kind of turn up. I will say though, so I think a lot of people from the outside saw the market boom. Like, let's use Pokemon for an example. A lot of investors and people like that saw the industry boom. So they went headfirst into it and started buying it up. And then a lot of younger people had also built like a pretty good nest egg of funds with like Bitcoin and Ethereum and things like that. So they had more like liquid income.
Mm.
And then obviously COVID getting like those supplementary checks in the US and things like that
Yeah.
really just gave people more power to buy these things.
Yeah.
I will say though, the industry has kind of cooled a little bit. You're seeing it come down because people are starting to panic sell because they've put a little bit too much money into the industry. So now's a good time to buy if you're actually interested in doing it, but it's still a hot market for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of industries see that same trend right now, right?
Yeah.
So here's another one from Nathaniel. Oh, disappeared on me here for a second. Do you have any comments on finding a distributor? I think that's a key aspect to your business, and I think that's an interesting one for people who are getting started. How do you build those relationships?
Yeah. So right now, finding a distributor is probably, I will be honest, it's very hard. Unless you have a retail store, they're not open to like online distribution right now. That's going to change in the new year because Pokemon's going to print more. But just right now, because everyone's built these relationships already. Now, with that being said, we actually do wholesale like to some online businesses. We have a deal with like another distributor called Grosvenor, which is one of the Canadian Pokémon distribution chains or whatever.
Yep.
We actually partnered with them to like help smaller upcoming businesses with like it's a limited amount of product, but just to get your kind of like feet in the door. And we also do supply like streamers and things like that. And then there's also a couple other Canadian stores. There's one called Deck Out Gaming. They also supply new and upcoming stores because we want to like keep the interest in the community.
Yep.
And we also want to keep the interest in the hobby. So helping one another and helping new people trying to jump into it, super important to us.
Cool. This one I'm gonna put together. So there's Braden and there's an anonymous attendee, and I think the two questions line up pretty well together. So Braden's wondering how you got the money to start up with. I think we touched on a little bit, and then our anonymous attendee is wondering how long did it take for you to be successful, or what you consider successful, and what did you do when you hit a rough patch? How did you pivot? What was the process?
Cool. So I'll start with the first one just because it's easy. So the money for the startup honestly just came from those cards that I had sold. We were able to build a strong relationship with our wholesaler in the beginning. So we had like, as a business, you can get like a net 30, a net 60, a net 90, where you don't actually have to pay for the product up front. You get like a 30-day window. And then if you pay with a credit card, you get an additional amount of time on top of that. But yeah, I definitely used like the money I had generated from the stuff that I had sold. It wasn't just cards too. I had sold like some of my old video game systems. Like there is actually money in old video games for sure. And then how long did it take to be successful, and what did I do with the rough patch? So I would still say like Hobbiesville is a success story, but there's still a lot of work to be done. You know, we just hit our 1 year. So I would say that like, you know, we're still working at it. And I think that we are successful in a sense, but there's a lot of things that we could do better. You know, our hiring, things like that, which is going to go into the next question, I think. But the rough patch question's great because probably about 2 months into Hobbiesville, we actually ended up getting just a customer who was very negative and had purchased a box of like XY Evolutions, which we had spoke about earlier. And the wrap on his box was a little bit loose. So we were like, okay, like you can send it back for a full refund. But then he decided to kind of like try to tarnish us a little bit online. And honestly, that was like my breaking point because I had been working so hard at it and I knew where I was getting my products from. And I was really like dedicating a lot of time away from my family to start the business. So it was super upsetting, definitely a rough patch, but my wife actually helped me get through that that was the first time she was like, noticed, I think, how dedicated I was to it and was like, you can get through this part. It's not a big deal. So yeah, support, I guess, is the biggest one. It's hard to do it alone. Like what I was saying before, you definitely can do it, but getting those like small moments of like support from your family or friends is definitely super helpful in those moments. Cause yeah, I pretty much wanted to like quit at that point, and I really didn't like the way people were talking about me on the internet, but it's just kind of how things go nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, I see that sometimes, good businesses getting bad reviews, not for lack of trying, but just because sometimes, you know, people, there's a disconnect online, you know, I don't have to say that to the person. I can just write it here and leave it. And so I'm glad you pulled through, because I think you got something good here. And I think building that community that you talked about might really help that, because there might be then people to come, you know, just on the internet to come and support. No, they're a good company. I got mine. It looks good, you know, and then building those good reviews. So I hope, I'm glad you made it through that patch. And I know it's not the only one that will happen, but good to have that support system. Great advice, actually. So you referenced the hiring and how that's going. And I think Katie's making a play right now. She knows your mom. She's from the same area as you, and her brother Ryan was helping to load the truck for your company. And she's wondering, are there any openings for jobs? And I guess that goes for everybody out here. Are you hiring right now? Are you looking for talent?
Yep. So we are currently hiring. Actually, we're hiring 2 fulfillment staff because we were behind. And then we also have some support roles, and I think my internet's a bit uncertain hiring right now. What we are looking for, just because we're in a bit of a crunch, are people that are knowledgeable about the industry, people who have experience with, you know, the different like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, stuff like that. Once that's kind of done, then we'll expand and try to help people learn about the industry. It's just for right now, that's our focus because we need someone to come in and kind of hit the ground running, opposed to trying to like train them just because we're so limited on time with this move and everything going on. Ryan was great at helping us load the truck. So if we ever need a mover, but he's also a super nice person as well. And he's friends with my sister. So maybe that's something that we can look into in the future for sure. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Katie. Thanks for the comment, and yeah, I hope you keep growing and keep hiring. You know, there's a lot of people I'm sure that would like to work in that sort of genre and keep their hobbies close to their income. You know, I know that's always a passion for a lot of people. So, Yoroslav is asking, has the YouTube Pokemon trend impacted your sales? As an example, did you have a spike in sales after the Logan Paul Pokemon YouTube series?
Yeah, I would say YouTube definitely impacts it. There's a lot of people, or well, it's slowed down a bit, but there's a lot of people kind of like pushing Pokemon online. I don't know if that was a marketing tactic by Pokemon, maybe. The Logan Paul video definitely helped in a sense. At the time, not to talk about XY Evolutions again, but that set was like pretty popular because it was pretty much jumping back into nostalgia. But it had been in print for like 5 years, and we had it sitting on our shelves for like, months, and it wasn't moving. And then he posted that video, and I think people really wanted to dive back into that nostalgia. So we probably sold out of XY Evolutions like within 24 hours. And I think now those boxes are selling for like $1,000 a piece online when we can sell them at like $119 for the longest time. So definitely an impact there. Just, I think it really opened people up to that nostalgia, like I said. And that's what a lot of the hobby industry is built around, is nostalgia. So he really amplified that whenever people were seeing him pull like Charizards and stuff on TV or on YouTube, sorry.
Yeah.
So, crazy.
Very cool. Yeah, and I think we all know the power of influencer marketing, and clearly it really is having a difference at the moment. So,
yeah,
what is your opinion on, and I believe this question is on card printing?
painting, I think.
Oh, sorry, what
painting.
Is it called? Oh, painting.
Card painting. Yeah.
Painting, sorry.
That's okay. I can answer this one. Yeah, I think card painting is actually super cool. Essentially, people like just paint the cards and kind of finish the backgrounds and expand them outside on the card. I actually think that's a pretty cool like hobby for people to have, and I think that's also a cool opportunity for people to, kind of make Pokemon and different things their own. I think that's actually pretty fun, and I've seen a lot of really cool designs, and I think I've seen people kind of merge them together to like expand scenery. And another cool thing about Pokemon is that a lot of cards, the backgrounds actually go together. So people have found a way to like paint those intricately to like actually line up, which is cool. So I think that there's definitely a business there if you have old cards and you're passionate about the painting side of it.
Yeah.
And I think people would love to collect that too, just to have, kind of a one-of-a-kind thing on their wall. So I think that's pretty cool.
That's awesome. I didn't know about it. I'm learning. I thought it was about like reprints and reproduction and that kind of thing, which I think would be a negative answer. But I guess we're just using it to play. Leanne has a question as well. I'm not quite familiar with the store itself. Well, hopefully you are a little bit now, Leanne. But is there any more than just games and card stuff? So I think you mentioned board games. There are other things that you're getting into?
We do, I'll just run through the list, I guess. We do like sports cards, trading cards, board games, puzzles, toys, really anything that's collectible we've kind of dove into. We have Tamagotchi, which is pretty cool. I'm looking around now to see what else we have. Those would be the main things. Like the toy one is expanding, and I think if you're looking to kind of step outside of, games and trading cards, then toys would be another avenue to take. But those are the main things that we sell. We also have comic books as well, and some books. We have, there's more now that's coming to me. We also sell Games Workshop, which is like miniature figures. We sell Dungeons and Dragons figures. We sell dice. Pretty much anything that you can find at your traditional hobby store, we more than likely have it.
Awesome. So lots there, and you're building time, right? So keep checking back is what I would probably recommend to people. See what he has available. What you have available. So there's a few more questions again in here. From an e-commerce side, from Madeline, who's asking, what e-commerce platforms would you advise for a small business just starting out? I can take a guess, but I'll let you answer. Is it better to start shipping slash selling in Canada before broadening your shipping abilities?
So it depends on the product line. And I can give you some examples. Like, Shopify is obviously a good avenue to get your website up and running. And if you have a product that you think that you can market on like Google and things like that, I think that's a Shopify thing. That's a good place to start. There's a lot of power though now within so for like jewelry and clothing, the biggest converter for sales is actually Pinterest. And then Facebook is another good one. I know it seems like a lot of people don't use those platforms, but they just have a really good return on investment. So I think that's a good place to kind of put yourself. You can put products on like your Facebook store because you can create a store there now. And then same with Pinterest, you can put them there as well. Those would be the two ones that I would recommend depending on the product line that you're going into. Trying to think if there's any other ones that I would recommend really. Like Instagram is pretty good. The problem, actually, Instagram and TikTok are both very good. But the problem is that they're shifting more towards video content. Like TikTok's obviously video content. It always has been, but Instagram really doesn't favor photos. So if you have a product that shoots really well in video, Instagram's definitely a good place to kind of build out a store, especially because they let you have the store directly linked to it. For us, it's a little bit difficult because we've really struggled with how do you do a video of Pokémon? It's hard because you don't want to copyright any of their information, and we do animations here and there, but then you're paying an animator, things like that. If you have something that say you're trying to sell dresses and you can shoot really cool reels, things like that, that's an amazing outlet for you to start selling your products because it has really high engagement. And then also if people like it, they're going to purchase it directly through your Instagram, which is really cool.
Excellent. There was we have a couple more questions, but we're running out of time, and we have a contest, actually, a giveaway. But I just wanted to leave you this lovely note. I think you might have read it, but from an anonymous attendee, that Hobbiesville gave me a lot of happiness through a dark time in my life last year with health issues, and I really appreciate what you do. So I thought that was really nice and a heartfelt message. So thank you. And, I think thank you from everyone for doing what you do. I'm appreciating the community building aspect. And there's just one question that we did answer a couple times, but I want to make sure everyone knows where to find you. So where are your current locations and a couple that are coming up, just so people can go to those?
Yeah, so we only have the one technically right now that you can go to, so I'll give you that one because the other ones would probably just be an empty hole in the wall. But we're currently on 607 Somerset Street West. It's just at the intersection of Somerset and Percy. Where, like I said, we're aiming to open on the 10th. Right now, we're available for in-store pickup. So if there's anything you see on our website that's at all interesting, or you want to come say hello, just knock on the door and we can definitely chat. I did want to touch on the one comment that you mentioned before. Obviously, I definitely really appreciate that. I think for me, as a kid, the biggest thing for me, Pokemon gave me an outlet when I was going through a dark time. And then similar to when I got older, I felt a little bit lost, and I was kind of just felt like I was stuck in a routine. So anything that you can kind of find that's like a hobby, whatever, that separates you from that, I think is definitely a huge asset to have. But yeah, no, I really appreciate that comment. That was super nice. But yeah, like I said, 607 Somerset Street West, you can definitely come see us. And we are hiring, like I said, too. So if anyone wants to apply, or if you want to send a resume directly to me, the email is just info@hobbiesville.com. That's my personal one. And I can definitely take a look and kind of help you out. So.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that's really great to hear those kinds of things where you're helping people, you're doing something, you're building a business, you're being passionate, but you're also, helping people through their times. And so thanks for sharing. I just wanted to mention that there is someone asking about how to make your own Shopify website. And my office, actually, the Applied Research Innovation Entrepreneurship Office, runs Shopify workshops for anyone and everyone. And then we're also having, specifically for students coming later, we will be having a 5-day how to build your Shopify store, in depth, taking product photos, everything like that. So, for anonymous attendee, I can't call you out, but be on the lookout for that. And you can email me or ask in the chat where to find that. All right, we've gone over time and I apologize, but it is time for the giveaway. So let's get at it here. So before we wrap up, we're going to do a quick giveaway. We will be giving out 3 $50 cards to Logan's store. Thank you, Logan, for that. And the first 3 people that answered these questions in the chat correctly are the ones that are going to get it. So I'm not sure if I'm supposed to ask all 3 questions right away. I'm going to ask the first one. Let's do it that way. So name any Pokemon you can think of. Go. You're going to win. And I think Susan's going to tell us who's going to win. So thanks, Susan.
I am. Listen, people love Pokemon, which is fantastic. So we posted the first question.
Oh,
so
you did it already.
Nicholas, I'm going to direct message you to get your information. Okay. So Nicholas, don't go anywhere.
Awesome. I like how people are typing, oh, let's bring me back those ones. Bulbasaur, good one. Good one. Should I do the next one, Susan? Are we ready?
Yeah, go ahead and do the next one.
All right. So we've mentioned it a few times. What is the name of Logan's business? You guys should definitely get this one by now. There we go. I see it. I see it coming in.
Here we go. Okay, so Cameron Taylor, don't go anywhere. I'm going to direct message you.
Sweet.
All right, let's do the last one.
Last one here. Let's jump in. Where did Logan work before he started Hobbiesville?
Here we go. Oh my gosh, people are paying attention. Fantastic.
People are paying attention. I love that. You guys are ready for class.
Okay, so Yaroslav, don't go anywhere. I'm going to direct message you. Okay, so Matthew, I'll pass it back over to you. But those 3 people, just stay on for a minute, okay? Because I'm going to message you to get your information.
All right. I am super glad that everyone is so engaged and asking so many questions. That's really awesome to see. Bring that into the classroom is going to be my advice to you. The more questions you ask, the more you're going to learn from your talented professors and all of them who have the wisdom to help you guys as you move forward. So I do want to thank you for joining us all today at AC Day 1, Hobbiesville, Entrepreneurship, and Pokemon. And if you're interested in joining another virtual AC Day 1 session today, please reference the AC Day 1 magazine. So that would have been sent to all of you, and there's a link there. You can check out all kinds of stuff. Where IO work is also in there. Quick plug. And so there's also you can also find it on the AC Day 1 event page. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day. And Logan, it was a pleasure to meet you, to talk with you, and well wishes for your future, the business, your family, and everybody. So have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.